piece of software. Now this works a bit differently to your normal
tracker users. I think there's something wrong with you guys. Like seriously, there's something wrong with you if you want to use a DAW that looks like this, in my opinion. Yeah, what is the amazing part here? What is which part is amazing?
If you wanted to change that, it'd be like really awkward, and I don't even know how you do that.
Oh my god, I feel like this guy plays stupid sometimes. What do you mean? We'll do AP mastering first. I tried every MIDI sequencer. One is king by far. Now, one thing I will say, my guess right here is this is already gonna be super biased, dude. This is gonna be super biased. You know, I already know it. I know it for sure. Okay, so he tried every MIDI sequencer. One is king by far.
Being too negative. I'm always destroying marketing hype and debunking audio myths. But then when I do actually speak enthusiastically about something, for example, Reaper, I get accused of being a shill. Well, I guess...
Bro, okay, wait, hold on. Is this the video he's talking about here? Ranking every DAW. Bro, this video? You're talking about this video right here?
Ableton Live, Logic, FL Studio.
You mean this video? They weren't just calling you a shill here. It's because you knew nothing about all the other DAWs you were talking about. That's what was going on here. And like, yeah, you did kind of shill Reaper here, but like not literally. You didn't literally shill Reaper. You were just very, very positive about it to the point where it's like, okay, you're just kind of being biased here. But yeah, this video was insane, dude. He like knew nothing about almost any of these DAWs he was talking about when he ranked them.
So I'm a shill then, because in today's video, I'm going to be telling you what I believe, in my opinion, is the best MIDI sequencer in the world. So I thought it'd be interesting to go over some of the sequencers which I've personally owned over the years, and I'll give some of my pros and cons to all of these briefly. Now, I first started making electronic music in a piece of software called Rebirth.
Oh, Rebirth. Okay, I think it's a Rebirth.
After it first came out.
Bro, who starts with Rebirth? That's crazy.
Now, at the time, this was an absolutely amazing bit of kit, basically a clone of a 909 and a 303. And after that, I started getting into Fruity Loops, and then Reason when version 1 first came out.
That is such a backwards workflow. I mean, I feel like it should go FL Studio, Reason, Rebirth, right?
That was absolutely great. And all of these bits of software were pretty much focused on step sequences. Now, you had a piano roll in Reason, but you would use like redrum patterns and stuff like that. And
oh man, I miss those days. I kind of miss these days, dude. I miss using redrum. All this stuff is redrum.
Step sequences are great fun. They're not the most...
The crazy thing about that is this spells murder.
Redrum patterns and stuff like that. And step sequences are great fun. They're not the most sophisticated and advanced tools in the world, but they're really, really fun and intuitive to use. But then after a while, I started thinking I want to upgrade to something more professional and serious. So I started getting into Cubase, and then I got into Logic. Version 5.5 was the version that I was on for quite a few years. And I absolutely loved this more advanced approach. And obviously, most of your work is going to be done in a piano roll type setting. And although that's much more advanced and you had much more fine-grained control over the sounds that you were making and the sequencing that you could do, it also lost a bit of fun in that more mature process. And then I discovered a piece of software called Renoise.
I've never tried Renoise.
Absolutely incredible piece of software. Now, this works a bit differently to your normal piano
tracker users. I think there's something wrong with you guys. Like seriously, there's something wrong with you if you want to use a DAW that looks like this, in my opinion.
Roll or step sequencer. This is a tracker style sequencer, and I was absolutely in love with this format. It's like reading the code.
Like, let's be honest. Let's be honest. I know the people that use trackers, you're gonna disagree, but there's definitely something wrong with you. Like, you have some sort of mental illness. Can we just like be like 100% honest right now?
I really am enthusiastic about.
Yeah, it's actually worse than modular. Yeah, let's be honest. It's probably worse than modular, at least in terms of like accessibility and appealingness to like the average person. No, Weaver, just shut up. Why though? Sir, you have 2 first names. I heard mental illness and I had to show up. Whoever says autism, that's fucking hilarious. Yeah, I wanted to say that too, but you know, I'm trying to be, a little more PC these days.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
Renoise, what a great piece of software. But ultimately, I just got fed up sitting staring at a computer screen all day, and I didn't feel inspired anymore on the computer, and I wanted something hard.
I mean, it's fair to not really be inspired looking at a computer screen anymore, but I feel like it's kind of copium when people are like, I hate working with computers. So anyways, I'm gonna go DAWless. I'm gonna use this thing that it's basically just a computer. It's just a computer, but you can't really use the internet on it. I'm gonna pretend like it's not a computer is what I'm saying.
Hardware, a bit more fun, a bit more hands-on. So at the time, the main thing that people were talking about was the Octatrack. Now, I went out and bought one of those, and it was quite expensive, and I really wanted to get on with it, but I just didn't really like it that much. I didn't buy.
Well, let me clarify here. There's nothing wrong with going DAWless, okay? I just think it's a little funny how like people get these more and more advanced DAWless devices, and then eventually you're just going back to the thing you're trying to avoid. You know, like the new MPC, it's basically a DAW, you know? Wojak, what are you saying? What are you saying?
With it, it just didn't feel intuitive enough. A lot of people really like that piece of kit, but for me, I wasn't vibing with it. So at some point I got rid of that, and I got a BeatStep Pro. That was a really exciting thing that came out, but it was almost the polar opposite because it was so limited.
Like, don't get me wrong, like it's totally fine if you want to work that way. Like if you prefer the workflow, but it's crazy when people pretend like it's not a computer, especially like the more modern ones. It's like, you know, the converters aren't even like special. Like the whole thing, it's basically just a DAW, you know, and it's fine if you want to work that way. It's totally fine.
What you could do, instead of it being too complex, it was almost too simplistic. It just has like 2 melody tracks and 1 beat track, and although that was so limiting and there's not a lot you can do with it, it was actually way more inspiring because you could just jam with it and it was fun, and I made way more music with that.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm saying now. I was like, that's totally fine. It's not that they're trying to avoid computers. They're trying to avoid the interface that they do spreadsheets and emails on all day. They probably don't do spreadsheets or, well, maybe emails, but that's totally fine. That makes sense. If you're trying to like spend less time in an actual computer because you're sick of computers, totally makes sense. I think most people just want a well-integrated MIDI controller system, but the problem is a lot of the ones on the market aren't fully compatible with their software. I feel like there's a lot.
Step Pro, and although you're not really going to be making entire compositions with that thing, it was more sort of like a tool you could jam with, that you could get some stuff into your computer and then edit that and make some tracks more in the computer. But the front end of how you could be inspired was sort of prompted by the BeatStep Pro, so that was a really good workflow that I was using for a while. But then after that, I found it was a bit limiting, and I was getting more into Eurorack. So then I picked up an Eloquencer, and I absolutely love.
One thing I want to talk about in the near future is like the rise of like useless samplers, like stuff like the Chompy. Yeah, Chompy is peak shit ass, dude. If you bought a Chompy, it's kind of hard to feel sorry for you, in my opinion, because why did you buy that thing? Why did you buy this thing? For seeing this video, this like 3 million view video, and being like, oh my god, it's so cute. Like if you like really analyze like what can be done on this just by looking at it, you should see that there's not much you can do on this. Like look at how few buttons there are on it. There's not a lot of buttons on it. It is cute. That doesn't make it good though.
The Eloquencer. What a great sequencer that is for Eurorack. I kept the Eloquencer around for a couple of years, and I did make a lot of music on it, and I really liked that thing. However, you feel a bit slowed down sometimes by the
rise of hobbyist musicians resulted in the rise of hobbyist gear. That is true.
rotary encoder. It feels like you've just got this one rotary encoder that you have to do quite a lot of functions with. And once you've discovered the chants and the ratcheting, there's not that much more. It's not that
I've never even heard of this thing before.
deep. It's quite intuitive, but the trade-off is it doesn't go very deep. So then I started
do music
trying to
production
expand that
news.
with
I'm
some
gonna
other
debunk you so
Eurorack
hard.
stuff. So I got
Okay.
like the Varigate
Okay.
8 Plus and a Make Noise Renee, and I was playing about with a Intelligent
This is so good.
Metropolis. The
This
thing
is like
with these
vanilla bean, like cold brew. It's so fucking good.
Eurorack based sequencers, they're really cool to have in your rack to get some CV and gate sources and stuff like that, but they're not really full featured, grown up, mature sequencers. They're just sort of tools in a way. They're really fun tools, but they're not really grown up,
all
full
tools.
featured sequencers. So at that point, I started looking at some other options, and I ran into the Hermod, which was still fairly new at that point when I bought the original version of it. And
Oh yeah,
first,
Enrage.
just
I gotta check that
taking
out. Do you
one
guys have a
look at it,
video
you
on
think,
that?
oh, well, it's not really going to be that hands-on because it doesn't really have that many knobs and stuff on it. It's just got like 8 buttons, and it didn't look that full-featured. At first, I was kind of a bit skeptical, but I picked it up. And after I started using it for a while, especially in combination with the MIDI keyboard, I was just like, wow.
One thing he didn't really disclose here is like this is the best MIDI sequencer for somebody who wants to program electronic music. Like I feel like that's one thing you need to like. He did kind of talk about how he does electronic music, but the thing is like you're gonna have a different preference depending on what type of music you do. Sorry for my English. Just want to say all you need is just a DAW with a sampler and some FM synth. Yeah, I agree. I mean, you know, obviously people are going to have different workflows. Like some people want to work DAWless, some people want to work with, you know, a bunch of hardware. Some people want to work modular, which I will genuinely never understand personally, but you know, hey, if that's what you want to do what you want to do. But you can't convince me it's a good idea. That's for sure.
This thing is absolutely amazing. Like, So I was really
Okay, it's a little bit funny. This is a little bit funny. He's like, this thing is amazing. Then he plays like a song. I've definitely heard these songs before. I've heard these songs before. Yeah, what is the amazing part here? What is which part is amazing? I'm not
So I was really pleasantly surprised with the workflow of Hermod, and I used that to make a whole bunch of sketches for techno tracks, but my workflow was pretty much like I would make some sketches and some loops, and then take that over into
like no hate either. No hate. Okay, maybe a little bit of hate. But which part of that was amazing and not different than any other sequencer or computer? Yeah, it's kind of my problem with like a lot of modular stuff. Like a lot of people will like hype it up so much, and then like they show you something that they made with it. And it's just like, oh, this is like 10 steps backward, man. You know, like this is. I get you're proud of this. There was probably a lot of work for you to make this with this, but this is like you're going way back with this. Like you know how easily this could have been on a computer or some other like just like a straight up sequencer, you know, a groove box or something.
To the computer, record it in, and then arrange it there and edit it there and do everything in computer. Just like I was using the BeatStep Pro to do, but a more advanced version of the BeatStep Pro. But I wanted something a bit more so I could stay in hardware longer before going over to the computer. So I looked at some other options, and at the time, a lot of people were talking about the Cirklon sequencer, and everyone was saying it's just amazing. It's the best thing ever, the best sequencer.
Why though? Why?
In the world. You've got to check this thing out. So I was going to give that a go. The thing is, you go and try and get one, and there's something ridiculous like a 3-year waiting list. and if you look at some videos online of reviews and stuff, it's more kind of people complaining about how complex and unintuitive it is to use and how it takes ages to do anything with
Every
it.
button on it looks exact fucking same, dude. Every button on this thing looks exact same. Yeah, I would assume it's pretty unintuitive to use. Like there's not even like a different colored button or anything.
Anything with it.
My biggest gripe with the Cirklon thus far is that it's just not fun.
So I can't really say too much about it 'cause I have
It's just not fun. I mean, you can really say that for a lot of like overly complex things.
So I can't really say too much about it because I haven't used one myself. But all of the videos I've seen of other people using it online, they're just sitting there doing stuff, taking ages to set stuff up, and it doesn't look fast. And I want to be fast and hands-on. It doesn't look like that, so I don't really think that would be something that I would personally enjoy using so much anyway. So I didn't get the Cirklon, but the company Squarp Instruments, who made Hermod, which I like so much, I like the workflow, the operating system, but I wanted something a bit more, a bigger sequencer. Well, they had just that. This is the Pyramid, which they made, which is absolutely incredible. It's got
Yeah, it's me when my parents tell me to get a job. Why won't you get a job?
It's just not fun.
Dude, I need that clip.
It's got the balance just right of the physical
I hate the way he's showing this, dude. He's like showing it at an angle and I can't really get a good look at it.
nature, intuitive nature of using a bit of kit. So you feel like you're actually playing an instrument, like a guitar or something. You're actually playing a physical instrument, and the screen is there. So you've got enough
Okay, this little tiny screen.
information, and the screen is sort of detailed enough so you can actually see what's going on, but it's small and sort of deliberately crap enough that you're not staring at a computer screen like what you're doing when you're sitting behind a computer. You don't feel like you're sitting behind a computer. You feel like you're using an actual piece of real
I mean, I feel like you are sitting behind a computer still, but it's like a smaller one.
hardware, like an instrument that you can play.
Yeah, it's a screen for ants. Like, I don't know, it just, God, a lot of this feels like cope, dude.
And that balance was so important, and you got that so right.
It's like, how can I justify this? Like, how can I possibly justify this? Well, it doesn't feel like I'm behind a computer anymore. I mean, technically it is a computer, but I don't feel like I'm behind a computer anymore. And also the screen is so small that it makes me feel like I'm not behind a computer. Like the screen is like so tiny I can barely read it, but I feel like I'm not behind a computer, which is really good.
I didn't know how
No, I'm not even a hardware hater. Like I'm not. If you want to like get it. But I just think some of the reasons people give are like kind of odd.
they could make that any better. So, is this the best MIDI sequencer in the world? No, it's not. There's something even better than this, and that is the new version of it called the Harpex. And this thing is just absolutely bonkers.
Okay. Kind of looks like a, how do you say it? Monome? I never thought it was Monome or Monome.
The I/O for a start, there's 4 MIDI port outputs.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's one thing that people say, like imposing limitations makes your creative juices flowing. The only problem is, while it can get your creative juices flowing, there's also a limitation to like, there's like a ceiling, like limited feature devices, like this sort of stuff compared to a computer.
There's 8 Eurorack type output, CV and gate.
Do you guys understand what I'm saying?
There's
I don't understand the problem. What's the problem with looking at a screen when you're making music? Seeing too many rock concerts by people who shake their asses on stage. I'm not sure what you're saying. What's the problem with looking at a screen when you're making music? I don't think there really is a problem with it. It's just kind of weird how people will say that about like DAW-less stuff, and then it's, you know, it's still basically a computer, I guess. I don't know. Weird. It's just a weird reasoning, I guess is what I'm saying.
2 Eurorack inputs, and you've got 2 MIDI inputs as well, and USB.
Yeah, it kind of
and
looks like the
output.
poly and play. That's true.
And the design is just absolutely phenomenal. I didn't understand how you could have improved the original pyramid because that was so good already, but they've just improved it so much. The 2.
Bro, this looks like fucking Ableton's fucking APC. This is like basically... Wait, hold on. It's pretty similar. It's pretty similar, no? I think, you know, they may have a version that's a little closer. Maybe the push is a bit closer. Maybe I'm thinking of the push. I know it's a standalone hardware sequencer. I'm just saying, like, design-wise, it looks pretty similar. Like this one right here. It looks pretty similar to this one. Like, you can kind of get a similar workflow with Ableton in this, is what I'm saying.
We were just, like, worlds apart. The 2 screens are
2 screens.
really, really good on this because I didn't want so much screen because I didn't want to feel like I'm sitting in front
They didn't want so much screen, but you got 2 of them.
of a computer. But you still don't feel like you're sitting in front of a computer with this because they're black and white.
It just feels like you're behind like a older, shittier computer then.
You feel like you're actually playing a real instrument. And then you've got this ridiculous amount of
I'm assuming they're not velocity sensitive.
silicon pads
How do you feel like you're playing an instrument with non-velocity sensitive pads, right? They're non-velocity sensitive, right?
here. So the intuitive,
So it feels like you're behind a calculator then is what you're saying.
performative nature of this is just next level. A lot of people watching might
How though? How is it? It's not even velocity sensitive. How can anything feel like an instrument when it's not velocity sensitive? Like, let's be honest here. I don't think you're ever going to feel like you're playing an instrument with a sequencer, especially one that's not velocity sensitive. It's not going to be, it's just not like an instrument, you know? It's not velocity sensitive. It's a sequencer. You can't feel like you're playing a fucking instrument when you're playing a sequencer. It's just not, like, it's great. Don't get me wrong. Sequencers are cool, but it's not an instrument. I mean, it is like, it's like more of like a composing tool. Like, I feel like instruments are like more expressive, I guess is what I'm saying.
not have a lot of hardware or any hardware at all. So you might ask the question, why do you want a hardware MIDI sequencer if you have no hardware to control with it? Well, you don't only control hardware with MIDI. You can also control...
Wait. So we're just going backwards now, or forward, I guess. I guess we're going forward, but we're going backwards. We're going back to the computer now.
stuff on the computer. Sure, you could make it much more complex and send weird MIDI parameters to max MSP and do all sorts of weird stuff like that and get really creative with it. But at the end of the day, you could literally
Accordion's not a velocity, but I still agree with you. Yeah, I guess like my point though is like there's expression to it. Like I feel like it's like more of like a composing tool.
literally just have a bunch of VST instruments and samplers set up in your DAW and just control it with this and have that in front of you as a hands-on intuitive way of composing music and not have to stare at the screen. You can turn off the screen and work with a hardware sequencer and control the sound sources. But some people watching this might be thinking, well, what about the Akai MPC series? Surely they're very good sequences as well. And yes, they are. So the Akai MPC 3000, which came out in 1990.
I feel like this is very different though. Like these are very different approaches, and like these have different appeals to people who are in different genres. MPC is going to appeal much more to a hip hop producer, or maybe anybody who wants like a little more expression, because the velocity sensitive pads or less pads with their velocity sensitive. I guess you won't be as concerned about that with like one of these other tools.
4 is absolutely probably the most iconic and legendary sequencer of all time. Absolutely amazing. When that thing came out, it's like $4,500, and in today's money, that's like $10,000. It's a serious professional piece of kit, and the I/O on that thing is absolutely fantastic. It's not only a sequencer, it's also a sampler. So it's got 8 discrete jack outputs on the back, which you can route to a mixing console and mix down all of the sample-based stuff that you're doing. It's got, I think, 4 MIDI ports on the back. It was absolutely a beast when that came out, and it's just absolutely fantastic. I really highly rate the MPC 3000. However, it's now like over 30 years old, and the memory on it has got like a floppy disk with like 21 seconds of sampling time in mono at 44.1, 16-bit I think it is. And it was really cool at the time, but 30 years later, there's just incomparable what you can do with this from a sequencing point of view. But if you specifically want the sampling aspect, because this...
Oh, dude, he like misses so many like crucial arguments here, but the velocity sensitive part, that's like one of the biggest things here. That matters more than like a lot of the shit he's talking about, in my opinion.
To say pure...
Like, I mean, not that you have to have that, but like just addressing it, whether, you know, because people are going to prefer the MPC for that aspect alone.
MIDI sequencer, no sampling, we can just get something like the Bitbox.
Some people, that is, not all people.
And now you've got sampling, and even Squab Instruments make a decent 4-channel sampler as well. So it's not that difficult nowadays just to get a standalone sampler, hook it up to that, and away you go. And the thing is, the MPC 3000 on the second-hand market costs about $4,000. So you can buy like 3 of these for the same price. If you look at what Akai is doing now with their MPC series, they've basically just recreated a computer. You might as well just use a computer. It's just a big screen, and they've got like a DAW in there, but it's just sitting.
I mean, realistically, the main advantage of using one of these new MPCs over a computer is like if you're like some sort of porn addict or something. You can't be on a normal computer because you're just gonna be gooning all fucking day. So you need to be working with like a new MPC. Cannot possibly have access to the internet. You know, you cannot be gooning with this thing. Like you just cannot goon with this thing. So it's a computer, but you can't goon.
And they've got like a DAW in there, but it's just sitting staring at a screen. Why you can stare at that screen, you can stare at that screen. What screen do you want to stare at?
I mean, some people may like, you know, enjoy using that more for whatever reason. They may enjoy the workflow for whatever reason. I don't know. I mean, I get it. I get why somebody would do it. I mean, I don't personally agree to it, but
so to me personally, I don't know who in this day and age is gonna buy an MPC 3000 over something like this.
It's probably because of converters, to be honest. Let's be honest.
Technologically, light years ahead. The things that you can do, it's just absolutely crazy. For example, like on this thing, you can do stuff that you just wouldn't think of or couldn't feasibly do with your standard DAW. For example, you can have each track independently with an independent tempo. So you can do like phase shifts between the tracks and like crazy stuff, like you can do ping pong. So you can play it this way and then it ping pongs back that way and then this way, or you can do it in like a random thing, and you can trigger this on the fly and all sorts of and you can clock it externally. So, for example, you could have some sort of like slight LFO fluctuation with the BPM. Which, how can you do that on a standard modern DAW? You'd have to like draw like a waveform on like the BPM automation or something. But
I mean, there are other ways to do that. You could just like have like a knob binded to it and then, you know, change it over time. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it. I don't know. Sometimes I think this guy just plays stupid to like make his arguments work better.
If you wanted to change that, it'd be like really awkward, and I don't even know how you do that.
What do you mean, dude? Oh my god, I feel like this guy plays stupid sometimes. What do you mean? What do you mean? That's so easy.
In normal DAWs, like in Reaper.
Yeah, I don't even know how you would do that. I mean, it takes like 2 seconds, and like, you know, a lot of people can think of how to do it in the chat right now.
Or Cubase or Studio One. Like, you can do things with this that you just can't do with standard DAWs.
Yeah, oh my god. I guarantee every single thing you can do on that, you can do in a DAW. And I'm not saying like you shouldn't use that thing. I'm just saying that's not a good argument.
And even if you could do them, you wouldn't want to do them. But with this, you do want to do them because it's fun. And with a software-based DAW, you don't want to do it because it's laborious and annoying, and you're just going to be sitting.
There are ways to do that are not as like tedious. You could, yeah, like people said, you could do like an LFO. You could like have like a knob and then record the automation.
Staring at a computer screen for hours.
How's your right? Carry on, Cold. I'm willing to hear you up.
To do something that you could just do in like 2 minutes on this in a fun way. So that's why it's so powerful, because it's so inspiring and so quick and so flexible and so sort of out of the box. You're thinking out of the box. So not only does this do your normal CV gate MIDI signal output, you can of course also do more algorithmic sort of generative random chant stuff with it, really rich automation on the CV outputs or on MIDI parameters. But not only that, you can send out pure envelopes out of this.
Yeah,
so what does that mean? So normally when you use a modular system, you send a trigger out to an envelope generator, and then from the envelope generator you go into whatever you want to control with that modulation signal. But you normally need an envelope generator to actually generate an envelope. Well, this can just generate envelopes straight out of it, and a lot of people, I don't even think a lot of people even know that, because what does that mean? It means something like stages. we don't need this anymore, because why do you need a bunch of envelope generator modules?
It'd be way more based if
you
he
can
throws
just generate
that.
envelopes
Throw
straight
it.
on this thing here.
Throw it.
And
Ah.
something like voltage block.
This guy's content would be way better if he like did shit like that. Just like, we don't need this thing anymore.
This was like an absolute weapon at creating really interesting,
Is he gonna
complex
Columbine us?
sequence
I mean, maybe if we're using DAWs, if we're not using Reaper.
modulation sources. But you don't need this anymore, because you can just do it as well with that thing. Even something a bit more exotic like this, you can do similar cool things with that. This is still really cool to have. That it's like you can reduce the amount of modulation sources and envelope generators.
Bro, this is funny. That's not a laptop. That's a, I think that's a tablet, and then like some sort of controller, or like some sort of hardware device. So we have, just hardware controller, then we get a screen for it. We're back in laptop territory.
You have in your case, and instead have more interesting, fun oscillator modules in your case, which makes a more powerful system in a smaller space, and it costs less money. So in my personal opinion, this is the best MIDI sequencer currently available in the world.
A Behringer Limb with screen and MPC beats. Dude, that's funny as hell.
It comes even close, and I'm not talking hardware based only, I'm talking hardware, software, whatever. DAWs, this is
Dude, that's so funny. Somebody in chat said, my wife says this guy talking sounds like DAW blah 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 blah, and then literally right after he said that, he says DAW da 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 da. He just did it. He did the thing.
In my personal opinion, in the world currently. So there you go. For all of the people who think I'm too negative, well, here's something I think is that.
Nah, it's not a paid ad. I don't think it's a paid ad. I think he just strongly really likes that thing. I don't know. Some of the stuff is kind of weird though. Like, I genuinely don't understand why he was saying you can't do this stuff in a DAW that you definitely could do in a DAW. And another thing that I didn't really appreciate about this video is like he kind of like ignored some important things. Like, like the MPC is the only thing here I'm pretty sure, unless I missed something, that is velocity sensitive, which, if you're like a hip-hop producer, that's gonna be like really important compared to all this other crap, or even just acknowledging the velocity sensitivity thing in general. I mean, overall pretty interesting video though. I mean, I know a lot of people love to hate this guy, but he does make interesting videos. He actually makes interesting videos. A lot of people do not make interesting videos in the music production space. So actually I do appreciate this guy's videos. That's my personal opinion on it though. I'm not gonna nuke him. Like, that was actually not a bad video.